Hello everyone, I'm Jackie Durkin, Chief Inspector of Criminal Justice in Northern Ireland, and welcome to another episode of CJI Unpacked. I'm joined today by Justine McIntyre, Damien Doherty, Elsie McGarvey, Brian Hanna and David McAnulty. This podcast episode is about our inspection of offence investigation and criminal case processing by Northern Ireland departments and organisations. I'm just going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what you do in your organisation and your contact with the criminal justice system. Justine, would you like to start?
Thanks, Jackie. My name's Justine McIntyre. I work for the Health and Safety Executive for Northern Ireland. I manage a team which is called the Major Investigation Team. So we are a team of dedicated inspectors which are set up to deal with some of the most serious workplace incidents in Northern Ireland. So that can range from fatal incident investigations to lifelong changing injuries, to dangerous occurrences, and also duty holders who continually breach health and safety regulations. So really, we're there to hold employers to account when things aren't done.
Thank you. I'll pass to Elsie now.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. I'm Elsie McGarvey. I work for Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs for Veterinary Service. I'm a programme manager, and one of the branches I manage is Welfare and Enforcement branch. So the enforcement part of the branch, we do take enforcement action for all parts of veterinary service. So that ranges from TB offences to welfare offences to issues with identification, registration and movement, illegal import and export. So the branch that I'm responsible for, they would take the cases on behalf of all of these work areas within the department. That's basically it.
Thank you. Brian, do you want to tell us about your role?
Sure. Brian Hanna, Senior Fraud Manager for Department for Communities, working within the Benefit Security Division. We, on average, deal with approximately 10,000 allegations linked to the benefit system. 75% of those would come from the public. The other 25% would come from staff or other systems. The more serious investigations would be linked to sort of things like identity fraud or cases involving other law enforcement agencies. These would generally go to the PPS for prosecution. Then the other route would be for what was deemed the less serious of cases would be dealt with by compliance, and it's a robust challenge with the benefit claimant, and we identified any inappropriate sort of levels of claim, then that would be amended and then any debt recovered.
Thank you. And Damien.
I'm Damien Doherty. I'm the Chief Inspector of the Department for the Economy's Trade and Standards Service. We're a consumer protection organisation. We have approximately 70 staff. And we do a lot of work in the criminal justice system in terms of complaints we receive from the public and consumers and lawful businesses about those traders who are breaching consumer protection laws. Primarily, we focus on e-crime, doorstep crime and scams, intellectual property crime, used car crime, and many other aspects of consumer protection. A small number of our cases go to court. We engage with the PPS, and we prosecute the most egregious offences.
Thank you. And last but not least, David, you were lead inspector for CJI on this inspection. So can you tell us a bit about this inspection and the challenges of doing it when it involves 6 organisations?
Yes. First up, I should say a big thanks personally to everybody in the room and all the folks that you manage. It's not an easy process to go through 6 organisations and try and make a bit of sense of everything and try and combine it into one report. So thank you very much for your forbearance in this inspection and all the help you have provided throughout it. It really has made it an awful lot easier for me and for our team. Normally, we as Criminal Justice Inspection, as it says in the tin, we inspect criminal justice agencies, which is, people think about that, it's going to be police, prosecution, probation, courts are the main ones, and prisons. But our statutory remit also covers any real organisations who are prosecuting criminal cases. Some of your work, it falls into some of the things you're doing. So it's very important that we don't forget about those organisations who sit outside the main organisations who are doing such vital work. It's the first time we've done a lot of these more in depth. We had a previous look, but only a snapshot previously years ago. But this was a more in depth to say, well, what is it you're doing around the criminal cases? We thought that was a unifying approach for all the organisations. We know how to do the criminal justice system, so we thought we'd look at some of the criminal cases that you're doing. It's difficult because there are so many other organisations that we could have looked at, but it doesn't fall within our legislation. Our legislative remit doesn't cover everything. So that's one of the recommendations that we made, that we need to change with the Department of Justice. All the organisations doing criminal cases, that maybe we should have more oversight, or we should have uniformity across the criminal justice system. So that was one of the main goals, to ensure that the consistency of how people are doing it. And I know everyone has different remits, and you have different things of when you should do things and when you shouldn't do things. When I'm talking about, there's the engagement versus the enforcement programs that you all incorporate into your strategic approaches. Overall, I have to say that the quality of case files was very good. It's very impressive as a general comment. There's clearly an awful lot of expertise and time has gone into the work and the role that you're carrying out as heads of your departments. And it should be considered as a credit to your organisations that you're doing such good work to maintain such a high standard in criminal case files. Now, there are other things we'll come on to later on, but I'll finish this part with just thanking you all again for turning up today. Very brave of us all.
So thanks for that, David. And obviously it's important to highlight the diversity in terms of different criminal justice offences that these organisations are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So can I ask if anybody would like to chip in? How was it for you? How was the inspection experience? It was probably the first time you'd had CJI inspectors to engage with. So what did you get from the experience? And is there anything you'd like us not to do the next time we come and inspect?
Yeah, I'll start off then. I genuinely thought it was a really positive and productive experience. I've been head of trading standards for 8 years. We've been subject to a number of audits. We've had the Public Service Ombudsman investigate complaints of maladministration against the service. We've had internal audit in the Department for the Economy, and they're long processes. They're very robust, they're rigorous. Exactly the same from the Criminal Justice Inspectorate, but it was an altogether more pleasant experience. It was very much, understanding our systems, our processes, our strategies, understanding the types of cases we look at. It was very cordial, very collegiate. We didn't feel that we were under investigation or interrogation. It was about trying to understand how we operate and work as a service. And particularly the feedback that we got from David and his colleagues, it was really useful. We certainly will take forward any of the recommendations. We'll implement them, as we always do, in terms of continually reviewing our performances, processes and procedures, and trying to make changes where that's for the betterment of consumers and businesses.
Thank you, Damien. Anybody else want to?
Yeah, no, I can echo that as well. I think we had a previous audit in 2017, but I was just new into post when David approached us for audit. So in one way I was delighted because I was new into branch and I wanted to see what was needed, so it was very useful to me in that way. And also, I've learned a lot from the audit report in relation to best practices in other organisations, which I think will help us to improve the service we provide and our service delivery. And I think even outside the outcomes, what we need to deliver on, there's a lot of lessons learned, I think, from this, from looking at the way other organisations do things to try and improve the way we're delivering.
Thank you. I wanted to ask as well something I was really interested in throughout the report and discussing with David and Claire, who were on the inspection team. So I want to talk about engagement and enforcement and how you decide and your teams decide when does one stop and another one start, or maybe it just doesn't work like that.
Well, I'd pop in with that one because actually what I forgot to cover in my introduction was subsequent to the report coming out, or as a result of the report coming out, it's I actually now look after child maintenance services as well, which was subject to this report at the time as well. So, and it's quite interesting, the enforcement and engagement conversation with that, because benefit security division is very structured around when enforcement takes place. There's a set guidelines and principles about how we go about that. But that isn't the case with child maintenance service, which is very much about engagement of predominantly the father to ensure that ultimately it's about protecting the child and supporting the child. So, but now we are in a position where actually we're getting those guidelines and strategies to mirror one another, so that we can actually take a collective approach, strategic approach going forward across both those agencies, so that we sitting under the same department really are sort of more operating in a more parallel process. That's probably more appropriate.
And do you think is that shared, Brian, at all levels in the organisation, where everybody's clear about this is what we do in terms of trying to engage people to abide by the law, and when you've exhausted those possibilities, and then you have to really go for enforcement and prosecution?
Yeah, I mean, again, a benefit for us as well is, at this time, Minister Lyons has taken a real interest in fraud, so he has, in relation to specifically the benefit system, and the report's timing is perfect because whilst it's identified opportunities to improve, it's very much given us also a clean bill of health about our approach. So it's very reassuring for him, and it's very helpful for us to be able to support our position. So it's given him confidence that we are taking the right tact. But it also allowed us to do things that, for example, in a preventive approach, he's now reintroduced, for example, the publication of court results, which had stopped for a long time, and it's now recognised that actually it's appropriate to do that. So, and I think that helps to support people's understanding that actually there's an outcome to, there is action being taken place, there's an outcome to it, and that when people make reports and allegations that they are followed through, and it's clear outcomes today.
And in terms of other organisations where there is that visibility, do you think that has a deterrent effect for, potentially to prevent reoffending or further offences occurring?
Certainly, just from HSE&I, on completion of our prosecutions, we do share our results with the industry. The goal of the enforcement and the prosecution is not just the result at the end, it's to actually get the lessons learned, to find out what the root cause was and to prevent it from happening again. We work with families through the entire investigation process, and not one inspector in my team takes that lightly, the sensitivities around it. So yes, it certainly is about lessons learned. It's about sending the message out to industry, and it's about showing the HSE&I take and will continue to take a firm stance when employers are falling short. But just going back there on engagement, it's not the only way that we deal with things as well. We are an advisory service. We do have operational inspectors who do inspections across all industries in Northern Ireland. And we've recently had a little bit of a step change in how we work to doing focused inspection campaigns. And they come as a result of looking at trends and statistics and what incidents we're seeing. So if we look at the last couple of years, we've been focusing on workplace transport safety with our Drive Danger Out campaign. And the health minister there just attended our occupational health conference, which is the focus of our work over the next operational year as well. So sharing the message is extremely important.
Absolutely. And I wanted to touch upon as well, I mean, obviously you have teams who support you in what you do, and I wanted to ask you about, the opportunities for more collaboration and sharing of expertise and training across the organisations. Do you think that's feasible?
Yeah, well, from a DARA point of view, we had an enforcement liaison group a number of years ago, which involved all areas within the Department of Agriculture, which took enforcement activity. So whether it was water, forestry service, and that organisation kind of went by the wayside during COVID, but we've reinstated that group about maybe 6 months ago. So it's really an approach to try and ensure a consistent approach across the department in relation to enforcement activity and in relation to enforcement activity that all organisations within the department are taking. And this actual audit is going to be one of the topics of conversation in our next meeting, which is in about 2 weeks' time, just to try and inform the group as to how we can improve best practice across all of the department. And also that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to have a consistent approach across the department in relation to training of staff, in relation to how we take enforcement activity, as relation to how we triage cases and the likes. Yeah, so we're really trying within DARA. But I think this would actually say I could go further. I could go to HSE because there's a lot of lessons learned from me from the way they do things in this. So probably need to go further than just ourselves. Yeah.
David, sorry, Brian. Or Damien.
So yeah, I think in terms of learning from all our organisations, critical to the success of any organisation. I'm very fortunate within the consumer protection landscape that there are so many organisations right across the UK. There's over 200 trading standards departments. We have the Association of Chief Trading Standards Officer, Competitions and Markets Authority, and we work with colleagues like HSE, Environmental Health and the Consumer Council for Northern Ireland. And like any organisation, you look and you see how well things are done in all our organisations, and you try and learn from those and adopt them and implement them as best you can. So while some organisations might have a different enforcement remit, we can all learn from our enforcement policies, our strategic direction, our case management systems. And certainly we'd be quite happy to do that where we've been identified as being good practice in all those areas.
David, one of the findings from the report was, in where we are in 2025, about a heavy reliance still on paper-based systems. Do you want to say a bit more about that?
Yeah, this has been more of a long-standing issue, and it's attached to the new digital justice approach that across the justice system, where we've been promoting and recommending the move towards a digital system. So that's linked to quicker, faster, fairer justice, and more secure justice system. We still find that parts of the Public Prosecution Service, for example, are still getting paper-based files. And of course, you will know this. You're part of that, but it's not just you. It's other particular aspects of policing and PPS will require paper files. I'm struck whenever, a long time ago, whenever I was defending, prosecuting cases over in England, they had moved into a digital system. I must show my age, 20 to 30 years ago. And it just takes so long here for us to move towards a system where we said it can work for us, because we were always given the example of Northern Ireland's a slightly different landscape. But in terms of digital justice, to answer the question, is we think it's past time that, we've heard about digital justice, we've heard about digital transformation for a long time now, and I think to make things more efficient, safer, we have to move away from people delivering bundles of papers across jurisdiction from one office to another in triplicate. I think it's time we all moved on from that. It's a bit much. I don't know if anybody agrees with that or not.
I totally agree. I think it is quite antiquated, and certainly whenever I see the resources and the time that it takes, to actually do all of that work, and the amount of paper. Obviously, we work quite closely with the police, and we submit joint investigation files. Police can submit theirs electronically. We can't. But I think there's potentially opportunity there to work, all of us sitting around the table with PPS, maybe to assist and lead on a suitable system that we could all use. We don't need something that's different for every organisation.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's probably the only part of our job where we really use so much paper. Everything else, we have a brand new case management system, and it has come on leaps and bounds from what was a really effective old case management system. But the technology and the advantages in terms of us allowing us to do our job, remotely, mobile, even, in the field, being able to take tablets out and do your job there. The fact that we're having to print out 3 files and bring them down to the PPS, it just seems about 1990s.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose there is an opportunity there with the Causeway re-procurement, starting to kind of have those conversations about how your case management systems would interface either with PPS or as part of that Causeway platform, to make sure there is that holistic approach to prosecutions in Northern Ireland. So I think that would be an exciting conversation to have, and I suppose it's about the art of the possible. What would help you and potentially what could streamline what's happening. So I wanted to ask you as well about, you have this inspection report now, it's been published. So what happens next in your organisations with the recommendations?
I can start. Yeah, so we, at the same time, we had an internal audit as well. So we had started to put some of the recommendations in place. So I suppose there were some recommendations in relation to the central dairy enforcement policy and staff maybe not being aware of the policy. So we've addressed that. Little things like that in relation to moving on cases and those and timelines around cases. We've put controls in place in relation to that. But I think the big thing that we need to look at is that outcomes-based accountability. We do very little of that. I think it's clear from the report as well. And we need to look at some of the organisations where they have, results, and they measure their, and everything's measurable. And then feedback to staff in relation to, targets that are set and hit. And, we don't do enough of that, and we're starting now to look at that. I suppose it'll help us measure our outcomes and improve things. We need to do a bit of work around that. So we started that. And thank you for that from the audit, because we started the journey.
And certainly for us, the obvious most immediate decision that was taken was that child maintenance service would come under benefit security division, just for that support structure around the investigations, because their work around the financial investigations is very good. It was just this added support around taking the investigations through to prosecution, which will help immensely. And we're also very conscious that the department has a 8.4 billion spend, but our loss is 2% at 1.6 million. So we're 160 million. It's a lot of money. So all of that's coming out of our, your neighbours, your friends, the impact in education help. So we're it's all about driving that down to the very minimum loss and ensure that there's accountability for everybody.
So did we help you get more work, Brian?
Yes.
Thankfully, the report was pretty positive about the work of the Trade and Standard Service. Much of what we will do in terms of the recommendations, we've devised an action plan, obviously as a result of the recommendations, but mostly they're the kind of things that we do every year to make sure governance and structures and our strategic direction are all as they should be. It is nice to be on the side of an inspection that doesn't highlight everything that maybe could be improved. It was very much focused as well on the things that we were doing well, so we can identify, look, that's working well. Here are the issues that we need to improve on, and we will be working through those and engaging with the CJI going forward.
I'll just say I think that was one of the benefits of David and Claire coming in as well. Obviously, they're going around and inspecting various departments and have knowledge of what other departments are doing well and can share that with ourselves. Obviously that has came out through the report as well. But I guess one thing I would say is that hopefully this isn't the last time that we're all sitting around the table together. And I think maybe we see today as an opportunity whereby we can move forward now and have some kind of forum or information sharing to take the recommendations forward and keep that, relationship going. We're all working effectively within the same system, so there's no need really to work in isolation.
It's certainly an opportunity for a regulators forum in Northern Ireland where we can share best practice, particularly across those cross-cutting issues that are common for us all.
Yeah, I think certainly when David and I were discussing in a jurisdiction the size of Northern Ireland where you have that network, and if you don't know somebody else will know that person to put you in touch with. So I think if we can strengthen that, I think all to the good. David, in terms of your experience of the inspection, are you ready to take on another 6 organisations?
Well, the thing is, with legislation change, we might have to. There's an awful lot more that we can look at, from pharmaceuticals to every aspect where the criminal case goes to the PPS or into the courts, because not all cases go through PPS, as in tourism NI. Just to reiterate, I think the job that you're doing, it needs to be highlighted that it really impacts everybody everywhere throughout Northern Ireland. It's some of the most serious casework, but it impacts us every day, whether it's cold calling and your elderly neighbour getting scammed for a dodgy roof or dodgy tarmac. These are real things that happen to people every day, or whether it's people, as colloquially known back in the day, doing the double or whatever it is, cheating systems, and looking after animals and looking after people when they're at work and making sure these things are done right. I can't stress that although it's not what people see as a central part of the criminal justice system, it's probably one of the most important parts.
I think absolutely this inspection highlighted to me about the importance of assurance and the importance of improvement, but it certainly shone a light on the diversity of the work that you're all doing, and I want to thank you and all your teams for what you are doing. I think you're involved in some of the most difficult and complex investigations because they invariably involve people, and they're always going to be difficult and complex. So thank you very much, and thank you for participating in today's podcast.